Hello, Liz. How are you?
Hello, Caroline.
Here we are recording another episode. We get to do two in a row, but they'll be released the week after.
Yes, yes.
Oh, welcome. So today we're going to be talking in your book, Navigating Shitstorms. We have reached a new section, Freedomville, and I'd like my money back because you say here the very first sentence is Freedomville isn't freedom from shitstorms. Sorry, I wish it was. Okay, you can just F off. Give me my money
Yeah,
back.
get in line. I know everybody feels the same way, myself included. I wish it were different. Well, I don't really. Yeah. No, shit is going to continue to happen. But it will lessen and it will be different. But it's not something we can avoid.
No. No. And the contrast is what we want, or else life would be kind of flat.
Good point.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Yes.
chapter is about
Yes.
oh, I lost you for a second. You're on, oh, where are you? There we are.
Oh, I'm back.
So this chapter is getting radical about self-care, doing things for yourself. And the little quote you have is from Katie Reed, self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. And most of us, especially moms, but most of us men do this too. My husband is quite a giver. We tend to give to everybody else before ourselves. Not me so much anymore. I actually am very good at self-care now. My family be
I'm
like,
happy to hear
you're
that.
selfish. Well, my kids are grown-ups now, so it's time that I actually it's easier. It's just easier because I have time now to do it. But self-care is really important. And I was just noticing your top, and just before we started recording, I want to talk about this. Show everybody your top.
Yes, yes. Check out the sweatshirt.
So someone's taken two sweatshirts and sewn it up for those that are listening on Spotify, and it's really, really cool. And you freaking thrifted it
I
recently.
did recently.
For how much
I was
money?
over in West Vancouver for a periodontal appointment. For the listeners that aren't aware, I live in a place that's water access only. So I have to take a ferry and go over to Vancouver to do a lot of things. Anyways, yes, they have a great thrift store there, and I frequent it every time I go. I pick up supplies for art, for other crafts, and I'm sewing now. And I came across this sweatshirt, which I freaking love.
Wait,
Yeah,
you said you're sewing
it
now.
was
Did you sew the blanket
no,
stitch on that? Oh, it already was.
I
Okay.
did not. It was already done like this. And I just think it's the coolest thing. Yes, it was $9.
So I love this. I love how we're starting off this way because I think actually thrifting, if you love thrifting, thrifting's part of self-care. I
It
used to,
absolutely is.
right? Like
Yes.
when my kids were little, I was an at-home mom and my husband was the main income earner, and I ended up homeschooling my kids for years. And I was a garage sailor because we didn't
I
have much
love
money.
garage sales.
I
I
love it, right?
still love garage
It was
sales.
amazing. I loved it. And it was definitely part of I didn't realize it was self-care at the time. It was just like, oh, I need to get out of the house on a Saturday. And instead of shopping for my kids at the mall, I would shop for them at the garage sales. And I was a really good garage sailor. I was good at negotiating. I mean, it's just such small things, right? But it teaches you how to negotiate for the big things with the small things, right? It's the same thing. It's the same
Yeah,
concept.
yeah. The
So
kick for me is the treasure hunt.
yes.
Is the joy of finding the perfect thing, and unique. And oftentimes there's a story behind the thing. You know, the whole psychology of material possessions is also really interesting. But typically at a garage sale, you're buying it from the person that owned it, and so they want to tell you about the thing, right?
Yes.
Which I also think like there's a connection, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What I noticed was happening too is the things that I think should be more expensive that they were not tied to
I know.
were priced way less expensive than it should have been. And the things that they were tied to were way more
Mhm.
expensive than it should have been. So
Yep.
it's really interesting to me to have experienced that with other people, right? Like, oh, that's what they value. So
Yeah, it's
yes.
so interesting.
Yeah,
So interesting.
so self-care, I definitely think something like that. I mean, even the thing about thrifting I enjoy too is that you save so much money, right? Like you can
Yeah.
just, especially with having little kids, get so much for so little. And for us, that actually relieved the burden of then spending a lot of money because we didn't have a lot of money, especially when we moved into homeschooling and that kind of thing, right? So being able to be okay. And back then when I was garage selling and thrifting wasn't a huge thing when my kids were little. Value Village is a Canadian, I think it's Canadian, it might be American, but there's a lot of value villages wait, there's in Ontario. Do you have value villages in BC?
No, I haven't seen that. That we have community thrift stores that typically are hospital auxiliary thrift stores, and
Right.
then Salvation Army is also um,
Yes.
big out here. Yes,
Yes, yes. And
yeah.
once in a while there'll be a church thrift store, but it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a big thing when my kids were little. So not many people were doing it. And how do I say this? When you're with a group of people and they're all spending money one way and you're really an outlier, then you start to feel like, oh, do I fit in? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? But for me, fortunately, at that point, even though nobody was really doing it, it still felt so satisfying to me to
Oh
be
yeah,
able
and
to
fun. Yeah.
contribute, right? And so that helped with my own emotional makeup at the time,
Self-care is anything
right?
that brings us joy, anything that
Yes.
is fun. And it's, I think, imperative that we carve out time for those activities. And yeah, when my kids were little too, I was living in the States, and the Oshkosh overalls were the rage
Hmm.
for babies. And at the time, so I'm going back now to the early like 90 early 90s.
Hmm.
They were about $25-$30 US in the stores, and I was buying them at the garage sales for 50 cents.
I was gonna say I would spend about
Right?
$1, and I was about eight
You're
years later than
ten
you.
years
I
later.
would never
Yeah.
pay more than $1. So
Right?
I know.
And you know what, from a sustainability standpoint, and that's, not necessarily what was in my mind at the time for the planet, it was more for a like my kid is only going to wear this for what, maybe 3 months, and then they're going to outgrow it. It just it I didn't see the value
Mhm.
in in that. And yeah, it made life easier. I bought little jackets for them, and for 50 cents, well, I could leave one in the stroller and I could leave one in the car. And and kids are so hard on clothes too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I resonate with all of it. So let's talk about other ways of self-care because you go through, I mean, some people might say, "Oh, some of this is obvious," blah blah blah, but you know what? It's really not because sometimes it's hard to give ourselves permission to do
Yeah.
these things, and especially when we're busy. I mean, even you touched on the healing power of food, right? Like
Yeah, especially when we're
the
busy, and especially too, you touched on it, Carolyn, when we're caring for other people, when we're moms of young families, or when we're caring for our elderly parents, or, and there's a host of other circumstances where we're needed, and we feel that pull because we're needed to put them first. And I'm not saying there aren't times where we need to put somebody else ahead of our own needs, because there are all kinds of emergency situations where that's an appropriate thing. But if we don't keep ourselves full of the heart voice power, and all the things that give us strength and patience, and everything that we need to care and be kind to other people, that it just doesn't make sense. We can't give away what we don't have without it without there being a huge cost. And then what? Then we can't help anybody when we end up sick or hospitalized or broke or whatever, right? I mean, it's
yeah.
kind of like the in the airplane where you put your oxygen mask on first and then you help other people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Selfish has gotten a really bad reputation, and I think it's not selfish to look after yourself first. It's actually a gift to the world when you have extra resources to share. When you practice radical self-care and you're really full, you can actually give more. You can give more love, more time, more energy to people who need it,
Mm. Well, thanks
right?
for making, I was going to talk about that later, but you know,
So,
now you
oh.
ruined that. Just kidding.
So don't feel bad about it. So what do we do? I mean, every self-care looks different for everybody. You know, for me, it's not always eating well. I mean, I do believe in good nutrition. I honestly, I don't like to cook. If I could have some help or somebody would present me with whole food prepared meals, I would absolutely eat healthy all the time.
Mhm.
But I'm lazy in the kitchen and it's not something that brings me any joy. So I recognize the value of good nutrition, but that's something that I find a challenge to care, to that level of care for myself. Um,
When I came to Mexico, and
oh
then you're
yeah,
like, "Do
yeah.
you like to cook?" I'm
Do
like,
you like to
"No," and you're
cook?
like, "Oh no, we're
Oh
screwed."
shit.
And then we did do the grocery shop, that one incredible grocery shop, and we got
Yeah.
perfect amount of food that we needed, and
Yeah,
it worked.
we muddled through together. Yeah, it's more fun with somebody who's participating. If left to my own devices, it's not uncommon sometimes I will have a bowl of cereal for dinner, which I know is not great self-care. Yeah, you know, it's the 80-20
But
thing for me
actually, okay, but
for
having said
food.
that, you know, you actually are quite healthy. Like I've been in Mexico with you, and you're so active. You're so active. You walk, you cycle, you swim, you did the beach massages, you ate well. You really are, and your body's actually quite fit and healthy. I mean, you're 10
Oh,
years, 10,
thanks.
11 years older than me, and you're definitely at this point, you're more healthy than me in all ways. Not that we're
Well,
comparing, because we just talked about not comparing, but I will say that I noticed that even though we weren't eating the best all the time, I was watching you. You don't overeat. You're careful. I'm sorry that I watched you like a crazy person. I was watching
Ooh.
you.
Well, I thank you. And yes, I still have my moments too of you know, inhaling a bag of chips and dip while watching a movie on a Friday night. You just get the munchies.
Hmm.
Yeah, the things from I'm very protective of my sleep. Sleep for me is a non-negotiable, and I get really cranky pants and don't function well if I have not had decent enough sleep. So I'm to bed early. I'm usually in bed by 9 o'clock, 9:30, and I need 9 hours. I like 9 hours. So I schedule that. And there's occasions where I'm out later, you know, there's events and whatnot. I'll sleep in and make it up as soon as I can. And yeah, exercise is an important one for me. I have just started playing pickleball, which I love. So that's a good combo for me of connection and fun and exercise and skill building too, because
Yeah.
I'm learning that. You know, I think it's a curiosity thing. If our experience has been that we don't allocate the time for self-care, it can be a bit of a learning curve to figure out what what it is we like to do that brings us joy. You know, painting is a huge part of my self-care too. And typically Friday nights and a good chunk of Sunday afternoon, I spend in my studio. And if I can get out there another evening, I will do that as well. But that for me is my creative zen, um, yeah, time. And I'm happy to be alone in my studio with my music, having fun.
And what about I hear you. Your studio is very pretty. It's very serene. It really is. It's lovely. And what about like outdoor activities for self-care? How do you include, I mean, you're right on the coast. It's gorgeous where you are. Oh my golly.
Yes, I'm really
Delicious.
fortunate to live where I do, and that also was a choice and by design. The water, I live a few minutes from 3-minute drive to the Pacific Ocean, and the water is very calming for me. So I typically get down for a walk or a meditation, or a cold plunge, which I've not done since I've been back, but I'm working up to it,
Mhm.
um, 2 or 3 times a week. And I also really enjoy the rainforests. I take walks in the forest. So nature is also a thing. I like to hike. Haven't done much of that, but the warm weather is coming here, so
Mm.
I'll get out to do that.
What I love
Yeah.
too, I was just thinking of like you had a guest in December and she was able to use the forest and all that nature and all of those amenities that you had for her own self-care as well, right? And so what a beautiful symbiotic thing that you are able to share that with others as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's I love to have visitors, and the nature things too. They're free and they're available anytime. You don't have to schedule or book it. It's something that I can do impulsively.
Mm. Well, I'm glad
So
you brought that up because I wanted to chat about that for a second because I was thinking about, I've been in different positions in my life. Like when we were first married, as I said in this episode, I'm like, what did I say this last episode? No, I just said this, that we didn't have a lot of money, right? And our kids are just coming out of high school into their 20s, that kind of thing. You start to get a little bit more at ease with the money that you have. We were never a really rich or bougie family. So I'm just going to lay it out in the line. And so I know that, especially in today's day and age, there's different ways that we can take care of ourselves. There's a lot of money output that you can do, but that not
yeah,
everybody has. And so I want to
correct.
be mindful of that we're making suggestions for those people that can afford it, and for sure do what you can. But when
Yeah,
you can't afford it, then you're listening to this going, well, that's just great, I can't go for my massage because I don't have benefits, blah blah blah. But I do
absolutely.
love how you point out that nature is free, and nature's also grounding. It's one of the best things for us, right?
I
That and
know.
healthy foods and exercise and sleep. Really, we have to eat anyway, so make your choice with food, whether you're going to eat the Big Mac or an actual, something healthier.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to chat about that for a moment? Because I think that's
Yeah,
like something to note.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had stages in my life where I've had absolutely no money and really struggling financially, and I've had some years where I've been very blessed financially and had could afford lots of extravagance, and then and everything in between. It's been kind of an interesting journey that way. One of the things I that I do almost every night is have a bath.
Mm,
And that would be a non-negotiable wherever I lived. I would be devastated if I didn't have a bathtub. It doesn't have to be a huge, big, extravagant, standalone, fancy tub. Like just a regular tub will do the trick. But there's something for me about being immersed in warm water
mhm,
that really is soothing and relaxing. And it's a transition from my day to getting ready for sleep for me.
mm. Oh, so you usually do take it before bed. That's just
Yep.
a typical, oh, I'll take
Yes.
mine like at any point during the day kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I could too. Actually, this morning I had a bath. I had a bath this morning for a half an hour.
Oh,
But
nice.
typically, it's an evening experience for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. We're doing a renovation, which is going to be going on for a while, it feels like. And we got a new bathtub. Our old bathtub was just the regular builder's bathtub, and this one is like a few inches wider, a few inches deeper, and like 6 inches longer, which is great because we're a tall family. And it's nothing special, but I feel like $1 million. It's not
Yep.
even, I don't really particularly like I like hot tubs, but I don't love the jets in the hot tub. I just like the hot
Same.
water, right?
Yep.
So I don't even, it's not a jacuzzi hot tub, it's just a regular tub, but just the fact that I could sit and relax and it's just a little bit higher, a little bit wider. I so enjoy a bath.
Right. And so I think that for people that haven't focused on self-care, and this was myself included, I really ramped it up after I got out of the place and was putting a concerted effort and focus on self-care. But it takes a little bit of curiosity and trying some things out to see how it feels. Does this really fill me up? Is it worth is it worth the time for me? Like, is there because time is our biggest constraint for everybody, right? And so for me, it's the time I spend versus the amount of filling up of me that activity provides, if that makes sense, right? Like, some people have asked me, do golf? And it's like, nope, I don't golf. And golf courses are beautiful. But for me, the benefit, the amount of exercise and the benefits, the connection, whatever, for the time it takes, like, it takes 4.5 hours to golf. For
Okay.
me, well, yeah, maybe more.
You
I
know what
don't
you
know.
need
Like,
to say? This is
that
what,
ratio is just off for me.
but I know what you will do for 4.5 hours.
What?
You will beachcomb.
Oh yeah.
So there's
Yes,
your
I
answer
will.
from now. When they say, do you golf? You could just say, no, I beachcomb.
Right?
And there's another
Yeah.
form of self-care, right? Like that
Yes.
it's free. You so enjoy it. I so enjoyed beachcombing with you in Mexico. Freaking loved it. In fact, I started taking off without you because there was a crocodile in the water and nobody would come on the beach during that time. And I'm just like, screw the crocodile. I would like to beachcomb. But that's another form of self-care
Right?
that you do,
So
right?
that to me is like a combination of garage sailing. So it's treasure hunting, but
Damn.
and in nature,
Right.
and
It's
beauty,
everything.
right? It's like it's the perfect mix. So the self-care for me, it's gotta provide the payback, if you will, for
Mhm.
the time spent. And that's a completely unique and individual assessment, right?
Yeah.
There are people that love downhill skiing, and I have done it before, but I don't love it enough to risk the injury because I'm not that great, and to endure the cold. I don't like the cold,
Mm-hmm.
that ongoing cold. I know you can dress for it, blah blah blah, but I don't love it enough to pay for, and it's also very expensive to pay for it and endure the cold and risk injury. But there are people there that get so much joy from downhill skiing, and then that's their self-care, and
Yeah.
they that works for them. So, um, and also it changes throughout our life too, the kind of self-care that we need and that fills us up
Oh, good
as
point.
as we age, and as our responsibilities and our lifestyle changes, and as our financial situation changes, there's other things that factor in. So it's not the same self-care, from when I was, if for someone who's 20 as it is to someone who's 60, right?
That's so true, right? Because if you're in your 30s and you have young kids,
Yeah.
you might be working full time. Your husband might be working for your partner. Sorry, I'm just assuming a woman's listening to this, or your wife's working full time. Yeah, that makes sense, right? That self-care for as a young mom is different than me right now, self-care as an older mom whose kids don't need her the same.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, um, it's sometimes like going back to playing, right? Like, having fun is self-care too. Hanging out with a girlfriend who is fun, and you can go do something to play, like you and I beachcombing. Like,
Or the whales when we did
it's
whale watching. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
doing
Yeah.
things that are fun is also a form of self-care, right?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to a retreat in a couple weekends, and the woman that's planned it's just put her heart and soul into it. And there'll be 14 women other than me there, so 15 women.
Oh
So I'll get to know a
yeah.
whole bunch of new women, and it'll be just, and it's not something like normally I wouldn't have done something like this, so it's new for me. Not that a retreat's not new in general. A retreat. It's kind of like a woo-woo retreat, and I tend not to. I've not done that kind of thing. So it'll be fun to experience everybody and that kind of thing. And that's one of those things where, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to afford it. Now I can, so Yay. And then I
That's the one in
beachcomb on the
Muskoka.
side.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
it's gonna be
yeah.
great.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
so
this isn't
happy
the
you're
Muskoka.
going.
This isn't the Muskoka one. The Muskoka one was a wilderness vision quest I was talking about before.
Okay.
One's in cold water, but it'll be wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, so many different forms of self-care. Do you want to, is there anything else? Like, I know you've done, have you done Reiki energy
I
work? You've
have.
done some
Yep.
sort of energy, you did breath work.
I've done
You-
breath work. Yeah, that's something that is really, really interesting. So I explore yeah, all those different modalities. You know what I just signed up for? And it's here on the Sunshine Coast. So a lot of people will be traveling to come for this 3-day retreat. I will be able to just go there and stay at home, which is really nice.
Oh, nice.
It's a drumming.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
know.
indigenous or is it?
Hand drumming. Um, no, it's not indigenous. Although I think that some of the teachings and the roots of the songs and the history of it will be taught. But it's in the forest, and yeah, I just was really drawn to that. I did one indigenous drumming ceremony here and really, really liked it. So this just happened to show up, this opportunity through someone I know. They sent me the link, and my schedule allowed it for 3 days.
Wow.
So
That'll
I'm gonna
be,
try
yeah,
it and see how it is,
I
right?
think it'll be a powerful experience.
Yeah,
The power of sound, right? And the vibration and
yeah,
everything, and being with everybody in that kind of situation will feel incredible, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. Thanks. I'm excited.
Oh, I just have loved this. I would like to finish up on one thing. One of the things that struck me when I was reading it, especially because I was feeling like kind of crappy today, was how do you do self-care when you're feeling really low and you don't want to do self-care?
Yeah.
That's
That's
not
when
me.
we
That's
need,
not me right
I
now, but
know.
I've been
No.
there where it's been
Yep.
like, I like you just can't. Like I don't even want to do anything. I just want to punch people in the face or,
I
other
know.
things like that.
I hear you. And that's when we need it the most. So for me, my typical go-tos when I don't have when I can't even wrap my head around where am I going to go hike, or I can't even just, get in the car and pack my stuff to go and do that. When I don't have the bandwidth for it, I will take a bath any time of the day. And I also will go to bed any time of the day. When I just am feeling
Mm.
overwhelmed and things are super hard, I will close the blinds and just snuggle in under the covers and close my eyes. Um, my mom used to say that all the problems can be solved while you sleep. Right? And she's not wrong, because I've had so many solutions or ideas arrive either while I was sleeping or after a good sleep. So I don't know, or just go for a walk. Just walk out your front door and walk around the block. Movement, when I'm feeling that antsy and angst as you described, where self-care of anything kind of complicated is just not going to happen. I always find for myself that movement helps as well. If I need to get something out, then I'll just walk out my front door
Mm,
and just walk,
yeah.
right? Dress for the weather.
See, and
Um,
so I'm opposite. I don't want to move. I want to be
yeah.
still for the most part.
Yeah.
So
I sometimes
but I
I do too, a
understand.
bath or
But
sleep. So, listen to your body, listen to your
mhm,
heart.
mhm.
Your heart voice will tell you what would serve you best right now.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we know what we need, I just need to be left alone, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But we
yeah.
don't, but we have trouble expressing that, or we have trouble, acting on that or doing something about it. But I know that intrinsically we know what we need in that
Mhm,
moment.
mm,
It sometimes just takes some courage to either do it or ask for it. Um, and that's practice.
mhm. I love that. I I usually in the end study my way out of it if I'm feeling low. I study my way out of it because I love I love spiritual type things. And so I'll take, something like, let's say in February, I was feeling a little bit yucky and I took a really lovely 7-minute Alan Watts video that I'd seen. And literally with that and with the movie Arrival, I was able to make a whole bunch of connections that meant something to me, and studied and looked at words and looked at how it all works and looked at the story and looked at metaphor and looked at, I'm like, I'm a little bit crazy,
That's
but
awesome.
I
No, it's
love
not
doing it.
crazy at
But
all. It's
and then I
your
end up with like really
crazy.
great notes, right?
Yeah, I
But
love
then
that.
usually what happens is something like that when I've had that kind of process, it's been almost like an undoing. And then I have material to help somebody else in the future, right? Like I have
Absolutely.
those examples of, oh, in the movie Arrival, when that happens, da, 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 this is how this works, and that kind of thing. So in the
Yeah,
end, I
that's
feel like it does
fantastic.
benefit not only me, but well,
Well, you
it
first and
benefits me, but
foremost,
me
and
first and
then
foremost, and then others
it's
eventually,
a
so
bonus.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, journaling is another big one too that I've used and can be helpful and sometimes easy and convenient and inexpensive to get your thoughts down on paper,
Yeah.
right? And just, whatever is going on to process it that way as
Yeah.
well.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting. I haven't been a journaler in the past, although I do write. And one of the lessons I got a few years ago from one of my teachers was to journal because it slows the brain down, right? Which is why sleep helps us too, because it stops
Mhm.
the mind, not the brain, the mind. It stops the of the mind.
Yeah.
And then sleep, it's like meditation, right? Sleep stops that mind and then allows, sorry, woo woo people, but I'm going to say it, source to come through, spirit, God, all that is, universe, whatever
Absolutely.
you want to
Yeah.
call it, allows it to come
Yeah.
through. So yeah, journaling does that same thing. It slows you down enough to listen to what's coming through.
Yeah. Meditation is also a big one for me too. If I'm responding like we started this question about being, angsty and tumultuous, then meditating is a little bit harder for me to
Mm.
sit and do it like sedentary. But a meditative walk, yes, is doable. And yes, all those activities are, so you talk about source energy, I call it our heart voice.
Right.
That's when, yes, those messages will come through. That's when solutions arise. That's when we are, led to feel more reassured and hopeful. Uh, and that's always a good thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
right?
appreciate you saying the heart voice, like bringing it back to that, because that's really what your book is about. And that's another word for it, which is
Yeah,
what I
source
love.
energy,
That's
God, the divine, whatever. I call it our heart
heart
voice,
voice.
and it's my belief that every human is born with that, and there are things that we can do to tap into that. And radical self-care is a really important part of being able to hear our heart voice louder and more often, and all the infinite wisdom that it has for our unique best lives,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a perfect place to end. Thank you so much. Thank
Okay.
you so much for today. Getting radical about self-care. We're into Freedomville now. I'm looking forward. We're almost done the book now. So
Yeah, a
it's
few
been
more.
really wonderful chatting with you about it. Thank you for
Oh,
your
I've
time
loved it
today. I
so
really,
much.
really appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care.
See you soon.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.